Dear no one, the ability to smile is one of the greatest gifts the Maker has endowed upon our largely evil species. But if human beings collectively specialize in one thing more than any other, it is improvisation. We know how to adapt to our environments and how to distort even the most noble of things to make them repulsive. The most noticeable thing about the rat was his smile. His mouth would stretch, its corners would turn upwards, and his teeth would be on display, in the elementary form of any normal smile. But a vast measure of arrogance danced crazily in his eyes, deforming his expression into a slimy grin. This repulsion he oozed wasn't limited to a mere display of superiority, and his eyes were not the only windows showcasing his rotten goods. He offended with his entire body, his entire being. There was something immensely hungry in him. What's wrong with a man in a cafe being hungry, you would ask, and no one could fault you for your logical query. The rat was a constant fixture in the Oakwood Book Cafe. Oakwood had several regular patrons, but the rat was consistent to the extent of being a fanatic. He would cruise into the cafe's parking lot just as the manager flipped the dismal closed sign to its happy open side. He came 7 days a week, invariably staying from 10:30 a.m. until 3:45 p.m. He had over a dozen luxury sedans and SUVs made by BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Porsche, Bentley, and even a Phantom and a Hummer. He would always park in the same, most premium slot, which the parking lot attendant kept reserved for him. He drove his vehicles himself. He obviously didn't believe in being chauffeured around. After sauntering into the cafe with his hands jammed into his pockets, whistling a jaunty tune, he would always park his ass in the same, most premium seat in the cafe, hogging the best picture window, which looked out upon the eggshell lake, with its sparkling blue waters, its sleek sailboats, and depending upon the weather, its sunbathing beauties dotted beach. There were a lot of legends built around the rat. A lot of people at the cafe knew his real name and his line of work, but no one talked to him, or rather he talked to no one, except for the servers and the staff. And I know which image this fact is conjuring in your fine mind. You are thinking of Jack Nicholson's character, Melvin, in As Good as It Gets, right? The eccentric rich writer who would interact only with Helen Hunt's character, Carol, who is a server in a cafe that Melvin goes to every day. Yes, there are admittedly some similarities between the two, but only superficial ones. The differences are many. Firstly, Melvin comes out to be a coconut person, hard externally, mushy inside. The rat could also be likened to a coconut, but one which is rotten from the inside and which would make you throw up with its stink as soon as you crack the shell open. Secondly, Melvin had the hots only and only for Carol. The rat, on the other hand, had no prejudices against anyone, long as the server was a female under the age of 30. Although there was a server he openly preferred over everyone else, Miss Sona Sampat. Lastly, and most importantly, Melvin didn't have the rat's smirk or his immense hunger. There was the infamous tic too, but let's first talk about this hunger thing before covering other issues. It was twofold, this need to gobble things up. One, actual edible and drinkable items. These he consumed like an obese pig, with ravenous ringworms colonizing its intestines. By the time he left the cafe for the day, he would not leave a single item on the elaborate menu untasted. Some of his favorites, extra spicy grilled chicken wraps and corn spinach sandwiches, for example, were always ordered in pairs. Of the numbers of frappes and lattes and espressos and cappuccinos that he consumed, only the cash register could keep the correct count. One representative each of all the fancy pastries and mousses and creme brulees that sit resplendent under the warm lights of the cafe's showcases went to his kingly table atop large black trays and disappeared into his smirking, hungry mouth with astonishing rapidity. This genocide of the dessert tribe would happen about 5 minutes before his leaving time, which, like the moment of his arrival, was always precise. He would spend the remaining 5 minutes of his time in the cafe and drinking his last cappuccino, wallowing in his private harem, formed by all the female servers going and sitting at his table, enjoying their own drinks, bought at the rat's expense, and talking with him as if he were their best buddy. In a way, he was those women's best friend, at least in the way of the heap of tip money he left at his table every single day. His spends were, of course, hefty, but those tips were heftier. A day's earning in tips for each waitress exceeded her monthly wages. The thing was so crazy that every eligible woman in Port Andreas strove to get a job offer at the Oakwood Cafe. Women were ready to leave cushy white-collar jobs in order to become servers at our rat-ruled cafe. Go figure that. And then he disappeared.